She was born in Russia with a limb difference, adopted into a new country, and told by the world in subtle and not so subtle ways what she might never do. Instead, she became an athlete, a biomedical engineer, a mountain biker, and the creator of Adaptive Amputees, one of the most honest and refreshing voices in the limb loss community today. But behind the miles, the medals, and the social media following is a deeper story about identity, comparison, and what really happens when amputees interact with each other online. This is the AMP'D UP211 Podcast, where resilience isn't polished and adversity isn't romanticized. It's real, it's raw, and it's human. I'm Rick Bonkowski, and today we sit down with Angelina Martinson to talk about beginnings, building your voice, and the uncomfortable truths that no one wants to say out loud. Let's get into it. Everyone, welcome to the AMP'D UP211 Podcast. I am very, very excited to say that we have Angelina Martinson in the building today. Angelina, how are you? Good morning.
I'm doing well. How are you?
Adaptive Amputees in the house. It's happening. I love it. You know, I got my
Here.
shirt too, by the way. I did order a shirt.
Oh, I
Yeah.
saw that. Thank you.
Oh, you did? You actually see the
Yep.
orders and stuff?
I do everything manually myself.
Look at that. See? Right there. I love that. I love that human connection. You're like, Rick Bonkowski.
Work hard, not smart. Is that the phrase?
You're like, Rick Bonkowski wears a large. There you go. So anyway, I wanted to talk a bit, and of course, I'm a loyal follower of yours and enjoy your content and all the cool things that you do. And there's so much creativity inside this little package that I'm talking to today. Given your following, and I've been fortunate to know you because I've met you previously, but to be able to get to know you online for a while now and to watch things grow, to watch that following grow, to watch your content evolve and change. And in some ways, I feel like I know you because you're very authentic. And the person that you bring, to your platform, to your channels, is you. I think it's very much you. That's the vibration that I get. It's not this, hey, I'm trying to look a certain way, or, this has to be perfect or that has to be perfect. It's more of a, hey, this is just amputee life. This is what it's all about. And I'm just here to advocate, help, educate, maybe make you laugh today a little bit. And do you ever feel strange when you do see a lot of that engagement, right? Because I'm a creator just like you, and there's times where I'm like, that didn't really seem to go anywhere. And then there's this unexpected thing that happens sometimes where I'll do something, I'll write something, I'll say something, and it's like kaboom. And I go, what? Like, what's the secret sauce? Because I had no idea that would actually push a button, which is a little, it's the whole, I mean, I'm older than you, much older. So the whole algorithm thing, the whole, how do you get engagement? All of that. It's so foreign to me. But is there ever a moment where you sort of sit back and go, yeah, it's a little weird that people are engaging on such a sort of high vibration that they feel like they know you, and there's almost this sort of digital kind of intimacy that occurs, and I think some of that connection is wonderful because we get this great feedback and all these cool things happen right in the comments, or you feel like you're moving the needle, let's say. But are there ever times where you're like, all right, that's just weird. This is a little strange now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There's like a rawness to it, and you feel like you really are exposing yourself. Especially, I feel like with my content, I am pretty open about my weaknesses and things like that. And so that always makes me nervous about how those certain topics will be received. But yeah, like you said, a lot of people feel like they know me pretty well because I do share both the highs and the lows and just kind of daily life. But it goes the other way too. I've made a lot of friends through this platform, getting to know them as well.
Yeah. And I want you to cite a moment where, like I was mentioning previously, where you thought, okay, this is just one of my everyday kind of pieces of content, and it's sort of like evoked or erupted something where you thought, wow, like that really got some engagement, or that created some controversy out there in the digital space.
Yeah. Actually, just last year, I was personally struggling with prosthetic fit. My socket just was not fitting properly. The prosthetist I had been working with left the States. I had to start the process completely over. And I was just at such a point of frustration that I was like, I can't be the only one that experiences this. So I just posted just a text post. I think reels blow up a lot quicker, but I just simply posted a text post that was like, I think it was like, what do you hate about being an amputee? And I'm tend to lean toward the positive side of things. But I do try to keep it real. But I just was so frustrated and I wanted to hear other people's frustration. Um, Misery loves company.
I wanted some
And
trauma bonding today.
yeah, but that post blew up. I mean, it had close to 1,000 comments. It had over 1,000 shares, and it wasn't really about the numbers for me. The comments were, I was kind of nervous because I was afraid it was just going to bring more hate and more, negativity. But it was people saying like, the middle of the night, that's the worst for me. Like when I have to get up and go to the bathroom and try to reassemble myself. And then that comment would have like 30 comments below it that was like, oh my gosh, me too. Here's what I do that helps me. And it just like everyone was just like sharing their frustrations and their solutions. And it felt like a support chat room almost. I
Yeah.
mean, it garnered so much communication with amputees. And it felt like a lot of stuff that people were kind of carrying, but didn't feel like they could vocalize either with their own loved ones, or even out loud, in therapy or in a support group. Yeah, I don't know. It was eye opening to me. So I was really glad that I had shared that frustration.
Yeah, and I want to echo something you said right there, which was having to express that frustration and having to deal with that pain openly can usually result in the solutions, right? Because once people start saying me too, hey, I'm going through
Hmm.
that. I wake up in the middle of the night. I can't stand when, I don't get the right fit, or I'm having one of those strangely off days.
Hmm.
And, my partner Sarah will be like, how was your day? And sometimes I'll lead my response with how my prosthesis fit that day. Like, I don't say anything about work. I don't say anything about, like, I don't know, I had a great meal. No, it's like, well, my leg was really cooperating today. There were moments where it felt great. It just felt like me, and I didn't even know it was there. And I was really confident in my gait and all this stuff. And then there's the opposite, right? Oh man, I don't know. It didn't matter how many socks I used. It didn't matter how many times I readjusted my liner. It didn't matter. I was just
Right.
not comfortable, and it was driving
Hmm.
me bonkers. And I don't know why my limb was so temperamental. My limb was just
Hmm.
moody today. It just did not want to cooperate with me. I'd move one way. I felt like my prosthesis was going the other way. I'm like, what is
Hmm.
happening right now? And
Yeah.
and people that are close to you and people that I work with, they'll say, you know, I can tell like you're moving a little slower today
Mhm.
because you can become proficient where you have a skip in your step and everything seems very, I guess, what, you know, two-legged people see as normal. And
Mhm.
then there's us, which is we have those days where we look as if, and then there's days where I know that when I'm getting out of the car or I'm traversing a certain area, they're like, oh, yeah, I see it. You know, I see that, you know, that sort of careful, gingerly kind of, okay, he's having one of those days.
Right.
And I think when you can be open about it, and the moral of that story is express it, you know, surround yourself with people that are willing to listen. And that's when the answers start coming. And I think when you provide that space on your
Mhm.
platform and you say, "Hey, why don't you guys talk about this?" And you probably chime in and you make your own comments and people know you're active in that. You don't just kind of set things there and just kind of walk away.
Right.
Because I see a lot of people doing that too, where they're kind of like, "Hey, check this out," and then it's like lighting a bomb, and then they just run out of the room.
Just walking
Um,
away.
exactly. But that's where the answers come. So I think it's really important to create those safe spaces for people to vent because how are you
Mhm.
gonna express that to someone that's never experienced it before? You know,
Right.
my leg's not cooperating. Oh, really? What does that mean? Like, don't you guys just put those on and just kind of like run a marathon? No, that's not how it works. I
Right.
wish. Um,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it would be nice, you know, but it doesn't happen very often. I want to sort of educate our listeners more about, you know, your beginnings, um, you know, how you were, you know, adopted and your limb difference growing up. And I do want to talk about the article that you wrote about criticisms in the community. I think
Mhm.
that's important. But I want to talk a little bit initially about what was the first moment in your life where you knew, like you had that aha moment of I'm different.
Um, it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment. I know as a kid, pretty young, I would get frustrated that, none of the other kids on my soccer team looked like me and nobody at my school looked like me. And people pointed it out to me very regularly that I was different. Um, but at the same time, I had such a support system with my parents that it was like, tune all that out and do what you want to do, what you feel capable of, and sort of don't let other people set those limits for you. So it just almost went hand in hand from such a young age of like, yeah, I'm different, but I can still do what everybody else can do. I'm just gonna have to think about it a little bit more and figure out a way to get myself there.
Adaptation,
Yes.
figuring out another way, doing it another
Yep.
way.
Mhm.
And I think that's an important lesson and has been for me because so often I'll be like, I don't know if I can do that. And someone will say, well,
Mhm.
you can do it differently now. It might feel different and it might take a
Exactly.
little longer to figure out, but how badly do you
For
want
sure.
it? You know, how badly do you want it? And
Mhm.
if it's on the high list of priority, then commit to it, right? Because
Yeah.
what does it take to master anything? 10,000 hours. And if it means starting over on something that, let's say, you did previously for amputees out there,
Mhm.
you may have to just start over again. And
Right.
I feel like the things that I can do and that I engage and bring me joy, they're so much sweeter now because I've done the work and
Yeah.
I'm able to thrive in those spaces again and say, yeah, I figured it out. And
Mhm.
it's like falling in love with yourself all over again, which I think is so important in that dynamic. Um,
Mm.
the bullying thing, kids deal with that, and they don't have a limb difference. They don't have
Yeah.
something really truly about them that is so overtly different, right? Because someone will
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I have freckles. I got bullied," and I sort of roll my
Mhm.
eyes like, "Oh, that must have been hard,"
Right.
And I think about someone like yourself, and
Mhm.
I mean, it's out there. Like, it's very obvious that something is going on, and kids are very honest. They're really
Mhm.
quick to point. What's that?
Yep.
And I would think, in contrast, as a kid, because you're sort of figuring out your world, you're at home, there's all that support, all that love. You're no different than anyone, Angelina. You can do anything you want.
Mhm.
And then there's that sort of contrast where now you're in this public space and everything becomes about, well, you're different. You can't
Mhm.
do that. You can't go as fast. You can't, jump as high. You can't do the things. And I feel like when I read your story and I research what you've been through, it seems to me like sports became like the catalyst. Sports became, well, wait a minute, I can do things. And this is going to be the thing that empowers me to say, "Oh, I'm just as good. I can push myself to these limits and perform well. You know, given any limitation, I can still overcome it." So, when do you feel like, how old were you when you thought, okay, I really enjoy sports. I enjoy like physical activity.
Also a really young age. My older cousins, who I just thought were so cool, they're only like 2 years older than me, but I thought they were so much older than me. And they were really into dance and soccer. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do dance and soccer. And I'm the least graceful ballerina. But I really enjoyed it. And I liked the challenge of figuring out how to move my body in such a controlled way. And I think honestly that helped me tremendously with balance in the long run. Soccer, also terrible at, but I enjoyed pushing myself in that way and sort of the team effort and kind of understanding how rough I could be on my body. I think when you are young, really whatever age, and you have a physical disability, people's first reaction is to be gentle with you and to kind of put their own perceived limitations on you. And I think being out on that soccer field um, really allowed me to show the people in my community and in my circle, like, I don't have to be treated, super gentle. I'm capable of a lot more than either of us realize.
That's awesome. And it's interesting too. I don't know if you know my listeners even know this about you, but you were chasing the Paralympics at one point, weren't you?
um, I don't know if I would go that far. I did do a couple triathlons with Melissa Stockwell's Dare to
Okay.
Try camp. Um, Again, I cannot stress enough how terrible I am at sports. I finished dead last. I could hear them on their walkie-talkie saying, like, "Don't take down the finish line. We still have one more runner." Melissa had finished the whole course and then came back and did the running portion with me. Um, so I've ran alongside Paralympians, but I am not one myself. But it's it's just incredible the level of athleticism that so many, and they bring together so many different disabilities. So hearing impaired, sight impaired, all sorts of disabilities that you couldn't even, like, my disability felt like a paper cut at this camp. It was just incredible to see everybody else's level of expertise and to be like, you're not that special, Angelina. There's so many people doing amazing things and challenging themselves. It was really, really cool to see.
Sounds like it was humbling. I mean, I appreciate how authentic you are when you say things like that. I just want to make it clear that, I was never good at that. I'm similar in that regard, where I'll say, I tried, but it just wasn't something that I was able to really get, attached to, really engage, really felt that I had enough of a combination of natural talent and the
Hmm.
willingness to do the work to
Right.
sort of elevate that, right?
Hmm.
There were definitely sports when I was growing up that I stayed away from for that reason.
Hmm.
Basketball. Oh my gosh. So bad. So bad. Um, I mean, I was more of like football, baseball, but then like music took over my life. So all of that kind of went away.
Hmm.
But it sounds to me like that experience, really not only exposed you to the full spectrum of the community, but it was also very humbling in that you were able to understand sort of your place in that kind of orbit and
Hmm.
to develop an appreciation of what those athletes do. And I know that we have uh, first round of games coming up in March. So it's going to be exciting to watch. I know people are, they're already watching the Olympics right now. I see a lot of chatter online about it. So I'm glad people are inspired when they see those competitors. It's
Hmm.
I love it. I think humans are amazing and what we can do. So
Definitely.
yeah, I celebrate that. Going back to your social media presence, when did you have that moment of, yeah, I'm it's time. I'm going to start sharing this part of me online. When did that occur, and how do you feel that what brought you to that? What was that decision like, or was it just kind of like a slow roll?
It was senior year of high school. We had to do sort of a big senior project. And I remember the faculty presented us with a handful of options that we could join as a team and do this specific project. And none of them really inspired me all that much. And so I requested to start my own project, and that was Adaptive Amputees. And I wanted to I wanted to have a voice. I wanted to explain myself, and I realized as a kid that when I wore a cosmetic cover and pants and was just shocked when someone would ask me what happened to my leg, I would be like, "What do you mean? It looks completely normal." Um, I focused so much of my energy on hiding it, and during that time was when I experienced the bullying the worst and when I just struggled the most. And then as soon as I would explain my leg to somebody, I put this on every day like someone might put on a pair of glasses. It just helps me get through my day. That's pretty much it. Other kids just were like, oh, okay. Like they understood it and then they left it alone. And it seemed like the more I was open about it and the more I accepted it myself, others accepted it. And it was just like, so it was this idea of explaining it to able bodied kids. But then it was the other side of the spectrum was that where were all these amputees? Like I went to a different grade school and a different high school and kindergarten, and all of these schools that I went to, nobody else looked like me. I was on the soccer team and the basketball team and in ballet, and none of those kids looked like me. And I was like, where are these amputees? Because when
Yeah.
I go into Shriners Hospital, I see a bunch of them, but
Yeah.
then I don't see them out in the world. And so it was both sides. I wanted the able bodied kids to understand it's not that big of a deal. I'm not hiding anymore. I just want you to know what it is, and then we can just move past it. And I want anybody who's dealing with a disability, whether or not if it's as visible as mine, to know that you can join the soccer team and be terrible at it. You can be a ballerina and be terrible at it. It's just about doing what brings you joy and not limiting yourself. And so with this senior project, I started my organization. I was giving public speaking, and I was doing public speaking engagements at hospitals and at schools. And each time I shared my story, I felt more empowered, and I just gained this sense of confidence that it was just almost as if all the bullying just melted away. And a big part of that bullying was how I saw myself. And so
Yeah.
I sort of invited that in. And
Yeah.
so once I became a more confident person and was like, yeah, I have a fake leg, it's not a big deal, um, there wasn't room for bullying.
What a revelation to have that emotional maturity moment of saying, yeah, there was some bullying, but I was actually putting out the welcome mat for it. I was
Hmm.
saying, yeah, bully me. And I was bullying myself by trying to hide who I was. And I do believe you're right when you really embrace it and say, this is just part of my becoming. It's not about a leg or, color of my hair or how tall I am or whatever. This is just me. I'm a human and I'm becoming my fullest, best self. And I think that's so important in the process. And sometimes, a big difference, a trauma, illness, certainly an amputation, it's a form of recalibration. And, I spent most of my adult life with two legs, and I thought I was indestructible. I, I didn't even know what amputees, I didn't know anything about amputees or what that life was, what that culture was. I think the first Google search I did in the hospital was, what does an amputee look like? And I just had no clue. I just, I think maybe I had some preconceived notions of, well, your life's kind of over at that point because you're no longer a functioning person. I mean, I'd think, well, are you in a wheelchair? Like, how does that go? And oh boy, was I in for just a huge unveiling of an entire community world, its own essentially, universe of just awakening. And this is such a huge part of the population. And we have a unique set of needs. And it's really important for us to do what we're doing, you and I. And I want to ask you, at what point did you realize, or was it the plan all along, like, I'm an advocate? At what point did that become obvious to you?
It became obvious to me in college, I would say. I had gone away to college, and so it was sort of a fresh start, a lot of new faces, a lot of re explaining myself to people. Um, Adaptive amputees sort of took a back seat because I needed to focus on school.
Sure.
But with all of these new beginnings, I also was no longer a patient at Shriners Hospital. I had started at Shriners. They did my amputation and my physical therapy and everything as a 4-year old and all the way up until I was 18. And then I was on my own. And so I went to a prosthetic clinic in my college town, and they were really excited to have a pretty active patient. And so they told me about this great new hydraulic ankle and this really cool vacuum suspension system. And I had been, because it was Shriners and everything was free, I had been in a very low cost ankle,
Yeah.
and just a pin and lock. And that worked for me for those 18 years. And so I suddenly was in all of this high tech, heavy equipment, and I began having really terrible knee pain.
Mm,
And we started having discussions about becoming an above knee amputee. And
that surprises me. Wow.
yeah, I felt so out of control. And I took a step back and I thought, I've been an amputee my entire life and I've never had knee pain and I've never had these struggles. And I wasn't being active anymore because I was in so much pain. And I was like, I really miss my active lifestyle. I really miss, someone suggesting, why don't we go rock climbing? And me being like, I've never done it before. Sure, let's try it.
Yeah, let's
And I
go.
was saying no to all of those things. And so I took a step back and I was thinking, what changed? Why am I all of a sudden not enjoying being active? Why am I in pain? Why are we talking about revision surgery? And I realized just because it's the newest and best technology doesn't mean it's the best for me. And so I had to bad pun, but I had to put my foot down
I
and take
had to,
control
my
of my
prosthetic foot, I put it down hard.
exactly, it was heavy. Um,
Yeah.
but I needed to take control of my medical care and my life really. This was life changing, and tell them that I wanted to go back to the basics. I didn't want all of this high tech stuff, and to see if that would help with my knee pain. And it was night and day. I felt so much better. I was getting back into being active and trying new things. And that pretty much reinvigorated adaptive amputees and my efforts. And I kind of came back on as an advocate because I thought this was detrimental to my health and to my mentality. And I almost just let it happen because I didn't know any better. I
Totally
thought, you
changed
guys are the
your,
professionals.
yeah, it totally changed your trajectory. Like all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you were like, I've been doing this one way this long. I've never had an issue. I've always adapted to this system, my body, my muscles, the way in which I move, all adapted based on this technology. And yeah, all this stuff is really cool. So I'll give you
Hmm.
an example. I tried an hydraulic ankle, and yeah, it's really cool when they show it to you and the way that it moves, and you're like, wow, it's like a real ankle. Great. And it was heavy, and I was probably I was maybe halfway home from Oklahoma after being fitted with this prosthesis. I muscled through um, donning it at the clinic. I muscled through trying it out and just doing that whole, yeah, it's great. And you're just kind of like half smiling and you're like, when is the pain going to go away? Right. And I swear to you, I was halfway home, 6 hours away from the clinic. And I called my prosthetist at the time and I said, I think I made a mistake. And she said, what do you mean? I said, I can't even put this on now. Like, I'm in so much pain and I'm worried that it's not going to go away, that it's just going to get worse. So I was almost having like
Hmm.
a panic attack. Like, I'm going to go home. You took my other socket back. I have this whole new system and I I have this really bad pinging in my intuition that's saying, you screwed up. You screwed up. This is not right. This is not right. And she said, turn around, come back. It's
Oh.
not right. It's not right. And we have to fix it. And had I not said that, who knows what damage I would have done. So I think you're right that we have to be bold in taking those steps to say, this isn't working for me. Because I was originally with one of the bigger houses, one of the bigger clinics, and I heard a lot of things in the beginning. This is going back like 6, 7 years. Well, you're going to get used to it. You're going to be in pain. That's just how it is. And I kept thinking, that doesn't sound right to me. That's just how it is. Like, you're not wearing a prosthesis, but you're telling me that's just how it is. And I thought, that doesn't
Mhm.
sound right to me. So the self advocacy, I think, is the first step in that journey of, I got to make this thing work. And just like yourself, I've tried suction, I've tried vacuum, I've tried them all. And I've been fortunate enough, which many of us are not, to be able to try all of them,
Mhm.
all the systems. And Angelina, the only thing that works for me is Pinlock. It's the only thing that feels natural to me, that makes me
Same.
feel like when I step and I apply pressure, that my leg isn't going anywhere. That it's almost like an extension of the bone. I don't know what it is, but it just feels natural. And I can feel secure, and I can manage, different terrain, different surfaces, and I don't feel like I'm a fall risk. And any other system I've ever tried, as cool as they were, it just didn't do it for me. And
Mhm.
I know that a big part of what you do, there's so, and I envy you a bit, because there's so many different types of content that you do, right? Because you present a lot of different topics, you present a lot of different ideas. Some of it is, very pointed, and it's like, okay, we're going to talk about this today, and I'm going to give you some tips, or I'm trying this. And some of it is just random, right? It's just, thought of the day type of stuff. And then some of it's kind of like quirky and funny, and there might be music, and you sort of you're like, you're kind of like the jukebox. You got lots of plays, right? There's lots of stuff. And have you always been like a super creative person, where you have a lot of ideas? And I always wonder, because I'm a creative myself, I always wonder with creative people, like, when do those ideas come? Like, when do you, and do you sort of like write them down somewhere, like, oh, I got to do that? Or does someone say something and you go, oh yeah, that's a good point, like, I should explore that? Like, what's your process, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, I have a never-ending list of on my phone of ideas that I would like to share with people. I would say that from a young age, comedy has been sort of a release for me. I always wanted to be, the funny girl instead of the girl with the fake leg. It was sort of my mask. Um, and so comedy is definitely a big part of it. This is a heavy topic. There's a lot of lows with it. There's highs as well, but presenting it in a way that's enjoyable and a little bit humorous to people feels natural to me. Um, I typically stick to, I'd say, a few pillars. I definitely want to educate people. I always tell people it's like learning a language, like becoming an amputee. There's just so much terminology that's thrown around that you've never heard before. And so I try to educate people on what that is, both for amputees and for their loved ones, because, like it or not, our significant others, this affects their lives as well. For my parents, it very much affected their life. And so I try to educate everybody, try to bring some comedic relief. I try to really drive home the fact that you are your best advocate. Um, and then I think another thing that I really try to get my point across on is just because we get a prosthetic device doesn't directly translate to I'm going to become a Paralympian. And that's okay. Some people's goals are just to be able to keep up with their grandchildren. That's a very good goal. Um, a lot of people really like to ask me about running, and I have a running blade. I'm very fortunate to have one. I hate running, it's awful. And so for me to set a goal of like running a marathon is ridiculous. It's not something that I enjoy. So why would I, beat myself up because I'm not a good runner when
Right.
it's not something I truly want to do?
I wasn't a runner
So
before I became an amputee, so I'm not going to become a runner now.
it's terrible. I don't know why anybody runs.
But I'm in the same camp. I'm like, I have no passion for it, and the
Hmm.
things that I did want to, do were always things I had done before in
Hmm.
my past life, and learning that adaptation piece and saying, okay, how do I find people that I can follow that can help me bridge those gaps? And so much of my early amputee, years was really just following people like you and just sort of peeking in on what they were doing, what problems they were facing, how I could relate to that. And I was lucky enough that when I took a chance by messaging a few of them directly and saying, would you ever want to have a conversation? That our community is very, very generous with their story. They're very generous with their time. And to me, that is so welcoming, just as a concept, right? That, we accept all. Like we're open. I don't care
Hmm.
who you voted for. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
you're good. Like we can hang. We're part of the same team. Um, so yeah, I appreciate, that you have that ability to, check a lot of boxes, and it keeps people engaged. It keeps them entertained. It keeps them learning. And I think the other thing too, when I follow you, it's very normalizing, and you demystify a lot of things, right? Because there's the language, there's the assumptive things that go on, you know,
Hmm.
with all the two-legged folks out there. And we're sort of like, yeah, and I do recall writing something because I was at an event, um, and it was an outdoor concert, and I was talking to like an usher or something, and she looked down, and it was summertime, and she looked down and said, "Oh, I know about you people," and I'm like, "You know about us people?" And I thought that's a weird thing to say to someone that you don't know. And I said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" And she said, "You guys run faster than we do." And I looked at her and I thought, "Oh my gosh, are you misinformed?" Because I am not fast. I can promise you that. And there's nothing about this thing on my leg that makes me fast. Uh,
Hmm.
but again, that sort of, okay, I guess there's a narrative out there that once you don a prosthesis that you pew, that you take off,
Right.
like Flash Gordon or something.
Hmm.
Which you and I both know that's no. That's not how it goes. And I'm not suggesting that people that have that ability, that natural ability, and they want to, run very fast in a prosthesis can't. I'm just saying that just like a full spectrum of people, we all don't run fast. Some of us run slow. Some of us don't
Hmm.
like to run at all. And yes, there is a select few of us that can compete and sprint and go very fast. So I think the normalizing is really important, and I appreciate that. And I want to talk now about, the article and Amplitude and how that came about, and you formulated those ideas. I'm very much a writer myself. I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of writing. I put all kinds of crap in my phone, and I'm one of those. I was one of those kids that confused the hell out of my parents because math and science was like D minus, right? And it was like creative writing A plus. And my parents would go, "What's wrong with you? Like how is it that you're good and here you suck?" And I only thrive in things that interest me and that I love and I get,
Mhm.
joy from. So, whenever I read a great article and I see someone able to really put together ideas in a way that makes a lot of sense or is very vivid, I'm always curious, like what brought you to that piece?
Is this the one that I talked about the hate in the community?
Amputees
Criticism.
criticizing
Mhm.
each other.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Oh yeah, that one.
this one gets me fired up. Um, I do, like we've said, I do share a lot. I share a lot of personal experiences. And so, as my husband likes to remind me often, because I'll get a negative comment and I'll be like, oh, guess what this person wrote today? And he's like, you've got to let that roll off your shoulder. Like, you cannot be that affected by every single comment.
Let it go,
Um,
honey. Let it go.
but it's who I am. I cannot help it. Um, but like you said, you reached out to a few amputees when you became an amputee, and you just wanted to hear from other people who were experiencing what you were about to experience. And it can be such a great and uplifting community, but there's also people are people, and there can also be a lot of negativity within our community. We talked about trying different suspension systems. When I share anything about pin and lock, um, it gets a lot of hate. People
Yeah, I've been
very
criticized
much
myself.
people are very passionate about their choice of suspension,
Yeah.
and it's their suspension or nothing. And there's no one size fits all. And so I just really wanted to bring to light some of these negative comments I've received, because younger Angelina would have really been derailed by these comments. Um, I've built up tougher skin. I understand that people are sort of just venting their own frustrations. It just feels like a personal attack. Um,
Yeah.
but I really wanted to bring to light some of these tougher discussions that I've had online with complete strangers. I think people behind a keyboard feel a lot more confident
Keyboard
sharing their
warriors.
yes, sharing their unsolicited advice or opinions.
Yeah.
Um, Another one I get a lot of is comments on my gait. I clearly have something wrong with my leg. If I'm wearing pants and you see me walking down the street, not a it's not a question. Something's wrong with my leg. And again, people's misconception of you get this device and you just start running and you become an athlete is not true. And not every amputee is going to have a perfect gait, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So just normalizing some of these things that get very harshly criticized
I think the
online.
one I really get hung up on is the condemnation of below the knee amputees by above the knee amputees. And I know I'm going to get DMs on this because they'll say, "Remember when you were talking about?" I'm like, "Oh no, why did I say that?" Uh, everyone's everyone's experience is different. I know just as many above the knee that are active, thriving as I do below the knee. I know just as many below the knee that are homebound, can't don a prosthesis, as I know who are above the knee. It is all dependent on the individual and what they're going through, what their fitness level is, how good is their prosthetist, how much are they advocating for themselves, what is their support system like, what's their insurance like. There are so many factors that
Mhm.
lead to whether or not we advance further in that process. And I'm going to say it, just because I feel compelled to, it doesn't matter if you're above or below. It doesn't. It just is dependent on the person and the circumstances surrounding them. Because I'll even get comments, well, you have your knee. I wish I had mine, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, you're able to do that. If I had my knee, it's like, okay, I get it. You're mad that, your amputation was further up your leg. It was in your mind more severe, and clinically you have an argument. Yeah, they took more of your limb, but I can introduce you today to at least 5 people I know personally that are above the knee, that are doing things that go well beyond my skill set, that go well beyond my activity level. And what are you going to say to that? You know,
Mhm.
they don't have a knee. And I'm not trying to discount anyone's pain, anyone's trauma. I'm just saying I get hung up in the comparison piece
Mhm.
of everyone sort of, and then there becomes like this envy of certain equipment or certain
Mhm.
people having access, other people not having access. And I would want to say to the community, let's just try to support each other. Let's try to pull together, and
Mhm.
whatever we can bring to this space, um, in terms of our messaging. If you can support financially charities, if you can volunteer, if you can uplift, drop a positive comment once in a while.
Mhm.
All of those little grains of sand tend to rise. They tend to bring things up. But if everyone keeps tearing away at each other, we got nothing left. And we can't build anything on that foundation as long as we're bringing something good and real and positive to the conversation. And that might be sharing your trauma, but in a way that you're reaching out for positive feedback to say, this is hard. Does anyone have a suggestion? I'm having a really bad
Yeah.
day. Has anyone ever had a bad day like this? Okay. Because the reality is, yeah, things get dark sometimes for all of us. For the
Mhm.
Paralympic athlete that you're watching on TV that's sprinting, things get dark for them. I've
Mhm.
interviewed these people. They struggle with all the same stuff. They
Mhm.
have depression, they have addictions, they have a past, they have a life, they have relationships, they have a job, they have all these things, all these real world, real life, real time pressures. And we're all
Right.
just human. We're all just trying to figure this out, man. We're just trying to get through it. And I
Yeah.
feel like what you bring to the table, um, is huge in terms of, the betterment of the community. And I hope that you don't get derailed. And I hope that your life provides us access to you, and you can continue, doing what you do. Um, if anyone, wanted to reach out to you, what would be, your preferred way of, people wanting to engage you or your platform?
I have a website, adaptiveamputees.com. You can reach me at Adaptive Amputees on anything: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I also feel free to email me at adaptiveamputees@gmail. I'm very open to. I respond to all comments and I'm open to questions and concerns and all of that sorts of stuff. I also have been trying to do like weekly wins. If you literally just want to email me and say like, I walked for the first time in however many months, send it. I want to hear those things. It's nice to share the highs and the lows with somebody else who gets it.
Absolutely. Adaptive Amputees, like it, share it, get it out there because it's an incredibly valuable resource. It's been a pleasure, Angelina. This is Angelina Martinson, everyone. And that's going to wrap it up for us. I hope you have a wonderful day. My name is Rick Bonkowski. This is the Amped Up to 11 podcast. And I want to wish everyone health and happiness. And we will see you next time.